Aloha mai kako, aloha. Aloha. Welcome to the 2011 legislative wrap-up. Everybody likes an open legislature, they like a transparent legislature, and they like an accountable legislature. I believe it was a number of months ago that we came and we opened here's what's going to happen in the session, a town hall meeting. And some of you had questions about what we were going to do. Sam and I tried, to the best of our knowledge, what it was that we were going to do. And now it's kind of like, what did we actually end up doing in the 2011 legislative session? It's only been a few days ago that we've actually sine die, the proper pronunciation of what heretofore has been known as sine die. Sine die on Thursday of last week. And now we want to report back to the people. Report back to the people means say what took place, and you've got handouts that give you, I would call them all the trees. All the bills are kind of the trees, and we're kind of going to want to stand back and look at the forest tonight to see, in effect, what are the effects, the macro, as well as what are the micro, or the trees that we've been looking at. A man who needs no introduction, even though he's been introduced as the Lone Ranger, as the Caucus of One, but an orator for many. Please welcome Senator Sam Slom. Sam, come on up, man.
Thank you, Gene. Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Thank you, Gene, and your staff for putting this together. And now, the rest of the story. I think that East Honolulu has been well represented during this legislative session. I enjoyed working with Senator Ryan, particularly. Didn't get too much with the representatives, but you were well represented. Everyone worked hard. I did mention about more transparency in the open committee hearings. However, it was what was going on behind closed doors that you didn't get to see. And that is a function, particularly during the conference committees. That's a function of the legislature. It's not a pretty sight. You know, it's the old Bismarck quotation. If you like sausage or legislation, don't inquire as to how either is made, right? I have kind of a different perspective. As Gene mentioned, and as you know, probably, I'm the only Republican member of the state Senate, one of 25. In fact, I'm the only one in the entire United States that is the member of one party in either a state house or state senate. And people were giving me condolences and sympathy when we started out. But the good news is every time I went somewhere, I had 100% participation. And every time I discussed these issues carefully with the rest of my minority, me, myself, and I, we had 100%. So that worked out pretty good. We were on all the committees. We attended almost all of the hearings and all of the votes and everything else. I had a wonderful, hardworking staff that helped me tremendously. But I want to say a few words particularly about the budget. First and foremost, the budget was presented to us late, later than ever before by any administration, and later than is required by the Constitution. In fact, it could have been later. We were told initially by the governor's new budget director, Mr. Young, we weren't going to get it till mid-March. If we would have gotten it in mid-March, we would have still been in session in August or September. As it was, the fact that we got it in mid-February put everything back quite a bit. Now look, I don't want to bore you or confuse you with a lot of numbers, but here's my take on the budget. Number one, constitutionally, we are required to balance the budget. The budget is not balanced. I challenge anyone to look over that budget document, do as my staff did, add up every number, look at the Senate and House worksheets, and you will not find a balanced budget. In addition to that, when we started out, everybody talked about a deficit of $1.3 billion. I think if you talk to my colleagues tonight, they will admit that at this point, most of the leadership is talking about a figure at $1.6 to $1.7 billion deficit right now. Now you got to understand fiscal periods. They end on June 30th. The current fiscal year, which ends June 30th, just a month and a half from now, is fiscal year 2011. We had a $232 million deficit to make up there. The budget that the governor submits is for 2 fiscal bienniums up until fiscal 2013. And that's what I'm saying is not balanced. Along the way, I differ from my colleagues when they say that there was cutting and that this budget is smaller. They were talking in terms of general funds alone. If you talk in terms of the total budget, you're talking $22 billion for 2 fiscal periods. And that's with $600 million in tax increases or new taxes. It is including funds that were scooped dry, or pretty much so, like the Hurricane Relief Fund, the Rainy Day Fund, a number of special funds. It's true that there are no federal funds, but that's something that you should take into consideration. And my point that I've made from the outset is that unlike every single mom, every family, and every small business in Hawaii, we've all had to cut back. We've all had to do without. We've all had to change direction, and unfortunately, from my point of view, the state of Hawaii has done neither. It has not cut back. It definitely has not changed direction. We still have a belief that we can continue to tax and spend and go into debt, and that somehow, somewhere, somebody's going to rescue us. The problem is, there is no money out there. The problem is, when you look at other states like Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, California, and the list goes on and on. Every one of those states had overspent for decades, and now they're paying the price. But every one of them is making painful decisions to change the direction of what they're going to do in the future. We are not. The budget that we have right now, on June 30th, 2013, when it ends, there still will be no federal funds. There still will be very few special funds to take money out of. And so it relies again on redistribution of wealth or taxing one group of people against another. As Senator Ryan pointed out, and I'm very happy that she and a number of our other colleagues voted to stop the 25% increase in the general excise tax. Now 1%, going from 4 to 5%, 1% raises over $500 million. We stopped that. We stopped the pension tax because it's not fair, particularly to those people that have relied upon it, particularly to the military. We stopped an increase in the liquor tax, a new soda tax, and the bill that's introduced every year by the Senate, and this year a companion bill by the House, to tax all of your internet transactions as well. We stopped that. This is 8 years in a row now for that bill. But what did pass? We had additional fees, surcharges. Your motor vehicle weight tax doubled at the state level only. It's going to go up even more at the city level. Motor vehicle registration went up substantially at the state level, going to go up at the city level. They're already trying to pass, and it's passed 2 readings, a 6 cents increase in the gasoline tax, which is already the highest gasoline tax in the United States. So from the very beginning, my colleagues concentrated on how do we raise more revenue rather than how do we cut either existing programs or redirect some of the existing departments. And believe me, there is bloat, there is waste, there is activities that no one knows about and no one really has oversight on. One of the interesting things, and people that know me know that in the 15 years now that I've been at the legislature, I have voted against the creation of every new special fund. I don't like special funds. I never met one that I like. I'm against them because they're off the books and because people are willing to pay more fees and taxes because they think that that special fund will be used for a specific purpose, like save the owls or repave Hawaii Kai Drive or do something like that. And what happens is when the money accumulates there, my colleagues, all they see is the total balance. And they take the money out of there. For whatever purpose it was, they put it in the general fund. We saw a lot of that go on this year. There is some good news, however. For the first time, the legislature is taking a look at maybe special funds are not the way to go in the future. So we're looking at that. But we've got a lot of problems still ahead of us, and that's why we all, I think, agree we're going to be back in session, in a special session, probably in early June. And that's because of the budget. 2 things are happening. On May 26th, the Council of Revenues will meet again, and most of us believe that they will again downgrade their forecast for the future. Number two, if you look at the monthly figures from the State Tax Department, they have declined in February, they've declined in March. April is still not out, but we're expecting a decline there. But you can't keep taxing people over and over again, particularly in Hawaii, the third highest tax burden in the United States. There was not one bill this session that would have made a meaningful change in the business and investment climate, welcomed new businesses, took care of existing businesses, and helped them to create more jobs and provide more taxes and more welfare. We didn't do that. Instead, we keep going back to the same source. We've got to make those changes, folks, and you've got to hold our feet, our arms, our legs, our limbs to the fire, because if not, we'll go on a spending spree, and that's what we've done. One interesting factor is, unfortunately, the House majority members and the Senate majority members don't seem to be getting along that well. And if you've read stories in the paper the last couple of days, the Senate majority members were taken to lunch by the governor, and he told them one thing and then found out actually they were taken to the cleaners because they were told, oh, it's okay to do this on the general excise tax, and when they did, he proclaimed that he was not for the tax increase. People don't like that. It's like a lobbyist coming down to the session and telling you something that's not true. In Hawaii particularly, your word is your bond, and you've got to stick with it. So we're going to see a lot of changes. There were bills that were not passed at the end of the session. For example, a bill to fund the APEC conference coming up in November. But the good news is, with all the bad news about business and no money for APEC, we learned that prostitution is better than ever and that they are looking forward to APEC in November. So there you go. Always a bright line. We also didn't fund the bill that pays all the claims against the state. It's an annual bill. We do it as pro forma, but we didn't do it this year. Not one of the union contract collective bargaining bills was funded this year. And some of you heard about the sweetheart deal that the HGA got from the governor. In that contract, they had a clause and they were declared most favored nation. So I'm sorry, Senator Ryan and the Native Hawaiians that have been pushing so hard for the Akaka bill and for roll call and all of that, they're not going to be the favored nation. It's already HGA. But more bad news, some of the other unions don't like that, because what that clause says is, if other unions negotiate and get a better deal, then HGA automatically gets the fruits of their labor. And guess what? They don't like that. And the police and fire will not be in negotiations, they'll be in arbitration. So a lot of things that we look at. You know, we bit the bullet. We defeated a lot of potentially bad and worse legislation. But we should be spending our time in doing good things. We introduced over 3,200 bills, less than 10% of them were sent to the governor. He's already vetoed 2 of those bills. We've got a lot of work to do. It's up to you, as I say, to pay attention, as the AARP did, as the restaurateurs did, as a number of other people and groups did. Don't give up on what you can do. You have a tremendous amount of power, but you've got to use it. I look forward to your questions and be glad to try and answer any of them. Thank you again.